What up, Ho Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. Do y'all ever feel betrayed by your own body? Because I'm currently going through betrayal, not only with my skin right now, which has decided like, oh hey, you know how we haven't broken out in months, well, we're gonna break out right now when you're in your busiest shooting time. Like, we're gonna do it right now. But also with my ear. So some of y'all might remember that I got these new piercings done and I'm super excited about them, but they're just giving me so much trouble. Like first, the little crescent gave me a piercing bump. So I went in, she gave me some no pull discs so that I didn't have to have the piercing bump anymore. Then the flower crescent has a piercing bump. And the piercing itself like fell out. The crescent fell out. So then I had to go back in. She had to use a taper to like reopen the hole. And then now that fucking same freaking crescent just like it won't heal. And I'm just like, you little bitch, like behave, obey me. Like you are mine. I take care of you for how old I like how I looked at my non-existent watch, like that's gonna tell me how old I am. But anyway, I look after you and take care of you for 25 plus years, and this is how you treat me? This is what you want to do to me? You want to give me piercing bumps and pimples and achy backs? What next? What next? I just want perfect skin and cute piercings, okay? That's all I'm asking for. I'll deal with everything else, okay? Everything else can be fixed. Anti-Hoosins, we are here for an r/ask Reddit. This one is about doctors who have patients who didn't realize that like their shit's fucked up. I don't know. That's not the title of the video. It's called Doctors of Reddit. What is your O? I thought that was normal, but basically it's people who shit is fucked up and they didn't know till they went to the fucking doctor. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started.
/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. Doctors of Reddit. What was the most shocking case of I thought that was normal you've seen in a patient? MD here. Had a patient come in for cast removal literally years after it had been put on.
What?
She had just decided it wasn't worth taking off. Her leg skin was literally growing over the top of the cast and then down it.
Oh, no.
Once we finally cut the cast off, she was surprised to find that she had no skin underneath. But the dead tissue over her muscles and bones was being cleaned by about 300 maggots. I knew by the smell that something under there wasn't right, but wasn't expecting that. Patient seemed completely fine with it. Whatever. Edit. I've got tons more of these stories. That was just the first one that came
disgusting.
to mind.
That
Wait,
was...
growing over the cast. How does that even happen?
What?
Would skin start to grow over say a rubber band I left on around my leg for a few years? I imagine so. Look at the animals that get abandoned and have collars or wires wrapped around their necks.
Yeah,
their
that's
skin
sad.
begins to grow over it or it becomes infused with their bodies. So what you're telling me is, if I glue a gun to my arm, can I theoretically become Megaman? MD here. A couple years back, had a walk-in complaining of a few months of abdo pain swelling. I shit you not. The man was Simpson's character Yellow with jaundice and ascites, fluid filling the belly. He seemed shocked when I told him I was calling the hospital to arrange direct admission. A nurse here, guy probably went to the OR where they probs did a CT scan of his abdomen and pelvis. Probably did a paracentesis, removal of abdominal fluid using a needle, to reduce his abdominal swelling.
Okay.
Blood tests to check liver enzymes, electrolytes, blood counts to check for infection, and also acetaminophen, Tylenol, level to check for toxicity, a thorough history to check for excessive alcohol consumption which may cause liver cirrhosis. Agree with other poster who said liver failure is a long circling of the drain.
Oh,
A brutal
that
death I
sucks.
wouldn't wish on an enemy of mine.
That's
Ahem.
unfortunate.
Please continue. Liver failure. Not a
Liver
doctor,
failure.
but a patient. I went in for thigh, hip pain. I couldn't lie on that leg for more than 30 seconds without pain. I thought it was muscular and my doctor thought it might be radiating back pain. I had several rays and learned I had broken my hip sometime in the past. Had
Oh,
a floating
God.
bone chip in my hip. degenerative disc disease, a birth defect in my spine, and mild scoliosis.
Bitch!
Holy shit.
Are
I
you
hope you
okay?
had good insurance.
Oh my
That's
God.
brutal. How are you now? Luckily I did and still do. I'm doing well. Just some painful days and some not.
Oh my
I
God,
avoid
that's so
putting strain on
awful.
my back. Had 2 rounds of physical therapy and have a routine for when my back hurts.
That's good.
Ice
I'm
packs
really
and
glad to
Advil
hear
help
that.
when I rest. Scoliosis is actually pretty common, especially as mild as mine.
Yeah.
At least it
okay.
wasn't boneritis. When I was a med student we visited a clinic in the country where I studied. Lots of people get horrible injuries and use the local elixir of dirt motor oil spit from the local old lady to patch up an exposed arm bone. Or whatever. Had one woman in her 20s come in with a fungating breast cancer that looked like a hard mushroom mold growing through the skin and to the outside world. Constantly bled anytime you touched it. Her family shamed any injuries or impurities and she thought she just needed to keep it covered until it got better.
God.
Unfortunately, I have seen this
What the fuck is a fungating breast cancer? What? What?
on 2 occasions, both at hospitals that were in middle to upper class communities here in the US. One was a 40-year woman, a successful business owner and fully insured. Her sister made her go to the ER because she care of CP. She was asked to put on a gown for an EKG. I will never forget the sight or odor of her breast. It literally looked like green hamburger. Sadly, she did not seek care sooner because she said she was embarrassed by the appearance and later the odor. I followed her care as best I could. She went through bilateral mastectomy, radiation TX and chemo. She survived another 3 months of hell before she passed away.
Oh,
The
that's
second
so
patient was a
sad.
28-year-old mother of 2. No insurance and had to work to feed her family. She was seen for a care of neck pain. Physical exam x-ray revealed both breasts to be full of tumor. I know she had a double mastectomy and I lost track of her for some time. Approximately 2 years later, I ran into her at our kids' gymnastics meet. She was in remission and doing really well. Takeaway, ladies, guys too, please do yourself breast exams. Seek care ASAP if something feels off.
I'm like guarding
That
my
odor
teeth.
really
That
is no
so
joke with
stressful.
cancer. In late stages you can recognize it across a room.
What?
Just as a
Never even
caution,
heard of that.
don't do an image search for fungating breast cancer while eating. I
Got
don't
it.
know if this fits, but here's a story about my husband. We were messing around and he chased me through the kitchen. Took a hard left turn and lost his footing. Fell on his side. He's a big dude, so falling is a bit more traumatic for him. He couldn't put pressure on his leg and knew immediately he was hurt pretty bad. He was able to crawl to the couch, and once settled said he wasn't in too much pain. He decided to sleep on the couch that night so he wouldn't have to go upstairs. We made an appointment in the morning for the ER so we wouldn't have to sit there all day, but they didn't have an opening until 2. So we just hung out at the house. He was in a decent amount of ambient pain, but it didn't seem emergent. Once we got to the hospital, we find out that he had broken his hip, in this case breaking off his entire ball joint from the top of his femur. The
Oh.
nurses said they couldn't believe that he was able to sit up and had slept on it, implying that we should have come the night before, and probably by ambulance. It required surgery with some hefty bolts to
Oh,
put it back into
God.
place. But the crazy part is that apparently a healthy 30-ish-year-old man breaking his femur from standing is highly unusual. After several tests and an MRI, it turned out he was in the early stages of osteoporosis due to a pituitary tumor in his brain.
Oh my
So we
God.
discovered a benign brain tumor all because dude was wearing slippery socks.
Thank God
Holy
you guys
smokes.
found out.
How's he
Holy
doing
shit.
now? He's fine. He can't do certain exercises, like running, which he hated anyway, and he's on meds to shrink his tumor, which have worked beautifully. His osteoporosis is almost reversed. The end result there is similar to my dad.
That's
He
so
tripped
good.
over our dog's outside line and hit his behind pretty hard on the stairs outside. When he went to get checked for that, they found a tumor on his kidney. Thankfully, they caught it early and removed the kidney. If he hadn't have tripped and fell that day, who knows how long it would have taken for symptoms of the tumor to actually present themselves.
Right, that's terrifying.
Patient
That's so
here
fucking
went to the
insidious.
doctor for a note to have a day off work since I didn't feel great and just didn't want to work. Doctor poked me in the stomach, said that's not normal, and sent me off to have a scan, which took me 2 months to get around to. 2 weeks later I get the letter from the doctors asking me to come in. change my shift, so I go and the doctor went off at me for not coming in sooner and told me to go home and pack a bag. I'm off to the Royal Brisbane. It might be cancer. More scans later and it's decided that it's not cancer. It was a 4-kilogram cyst. My only symptom was an enlarged stomach and the "you're getting fat" comments from my mother.
Jesus
Shout out to the
Christ.
RBWH for being a tops place for various things. Always average to above good experiences there, honestly.
Yeah, shout out to
Hug.
your hospital,
Never
bro.
thought I'd see the good old RBWH mentioned in a random post in Reddit. Between that hospital and the Princess Alexandra, they have saved my life 3 times.
Alright,
I've probably
bro.
cost the system a couple of million over the years. Praise be for
Unfortunate for you.
universal healthcare. Patient here. I thought they
Wow, I wonder what that must be like to have healthcare that's available every time that you're sick, so then you don't have to be stressed out. Crazy.
but I got itchy when playing outside. Turns out I'm allergic to every pollen grass mold in the state, and I shocked the doctor during my allergy test when she
Yep.
came back and my
I
whole body
definitely
was
feel
red
that,
lumpy.
bro. I
Kind
feel
of
that.
similar to this. I always broke out in hives on my legs in gym class or when I would exercise growing up. In high school, a dermatologist finally discovered that I'm allergic to my own sweat.
Bitch.
She said she had seen a couple cases of it
That's
throughout her
awful.
career. I take a daily allergy pill now and I'm fine, but definitely a fun fact I can bring up.
Your own body trying to kill you, bro. That's fucked up.
Imagine your body saying, here is this harmless liquid that I create to cool myself. Let's make it into a mortal enemy and attack ourselves like madmen.
Yeah, that's
I
messed
started
up.
taking stinging nettle as an alternative natural antihistamine. I used to take a ton of Benadryl for allergies. I found the nettle to pretty effective.
Okay.
Not a doctor, but have a story. My own
I'm gonna let it slide because all of these stories have been real interesting, but y'all know how I feel about them being like doctors, and people are like, well, I'm not a doctor. Like, then why are you here? Why? Go home. But these stories are interesting, so I'm gonna let it go.
oldest son was 11 years old and needed a physical for youth tackle football. We had a new doctor, so she went into more detail than most physicals. He had complained that his ankle hurt during the middle of baseball season, so she asked if he could take off his shoe. When he did, she immediately points to the side of his foot where there was a strange bump and informed us he had a broken foot.
Oh
I
my
didn't believe
God.
her as I pointed out he had the same thing on his other foot as well. She took a look and said, "Oh, he has 2 broken feet," and sent us over to get x-rays from the hospital. I was laughing, thinking this was so crazy, believing there was no way my son, who not only finished playing in a baseball tournament, but who was running and jumping at the swimming pool literally an hour before, had 2 broken feet. After the x-rays were completed, my smile quickly faded as the doctor was right. That is when we learned about
Wow.
completely flat feet and the damage stress fractures can do when they go undetected. 8 weeks of cast and special shoes and insoles for the rest of his life solved the problem.
Wow,
His feet are
that's
still
wild.
deformed, but it never slowed him down. The question I have is, if it didn't hurt so much, then did he really need casts? If it was caused by having flat feet, then he probably had fractures before that healed okay. No, I can't believe he was so active while also in a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
pain.
crazy. That's
What would have
wild.
been the outcome if he didn't get casts? He had a walking cast on the foot. He said felt weird at the ankle as the stress fracture was severe. It was one of the bones at the top of his foot. The other foot had a hairline stress fracture, so he only had to try to stay off of it as much as possible. Because crutches mean you put all your weight on one foot. We had him use a wheelchair for 6 weeks with another 2 with limited crutches until both healed. The X-rays showed these were not the only stress fractures he had growing up, so my guess is he just thought the pain was normal due to how many activities he did. I believe he felt the pain the same way you do after being on your feet all day when you are not used to it. I do remember making a comment about how he was always asking for new shoes, but thought it was because he was growing or just wanted them. I never would have guessed it was because there was an issue to his actual feet being broken. Because he was so old when we discovered he was completely flat-footed, and he wasn't wearing the right shoes with insoles. His feet are deformed in a way as he has permanent bumps on the side of his feet that stick put like your ankle bones stick out.
Jesus.
BTW. After I told my mom, she told me she wasn't surprised as her 2 brothers, My uncles both had completely flat feet too.
Oh my god.
This is the same parent who only told me after my youngest son had an emergency surgery to remove his appendix at the age of 4 that my father and both aunts had to have theirs removed before they were 5 years old as well. Would have been nice to have known that when the surgeon asked about family history of appendix problems. Point being, make sure your children know as much family medical information as possible.
Good.
Well,
yes.
I'm glad I read this. A few weeks ago we took my 3-year-old to the doctor because we thought he had a broken foot.
Okay.
No real catastrophic event. Just started limping more and more every day. X-ray showed nothing because teeny 3-year-old foot bones don't really show up at all on X-rays. But they put a cast on him. It did not slow him down. He even wore a hole in the bottom from running around so much. He had the cast for 2 weeks and the docs thought that's probably good. The doctor also commented that he has completely flat feet and said he needs to wear shoes. My son hates shoes, especially in the summer.
Right.
2 days later, he starts limping again. I currently have a call into the doc about getting him back in. Maybe he has a stress fracture in his tiny foot.
Yeah, he probably does. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. The closest that I have to these stories is when there was this day and I was just like scratching and scratching, like my arms, my legs, you know, like back of my neck. And Chavez was like, yo, what's up with you? Are you good? I was like, oh yeah, you know, it's just one of my itchy days. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh yeah, you know, like you have itchy days where, you know, you just itch all the time and your whole body itches and whatever. And he was like, no baby, that's not normal. That's not what's supposed to happen to you. And that's how we figured out that I was allergic not only to my perfume, but my lotion and also my soap. So that's that. We finally figured it out, so now I use all this stuff for sensitive skin and I don't get to use smell goods anymore. Anti-who's-in, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave your reaction requests and recommendations down in the comments below. And other than that, peace out, hope biscuits. It's Skittin' Lit.